I have to admit I had a good childhood. That doesn't mean it was all wine and roses. There were moments when you were reminded, shockingly sometimes, brutally sometimes, who you were, that you were black, and that you were in a segregated society. I was coming out of a place called a sweet shop that was run by my father. And I was, I guess, 2/3 out of the door into the street when this big police officer, it was about 1/3 in, and punched me in the belly with his nightstick and said, "Get back, nigga. Don't you see a white man coming?" And that was one of the dark moments of my childhood. Of course, there was nothing for me to do but get back. He was a big fellow and I was a little boy. And finally, when he stepped aside, I headed for home. And I was furious. And I remembered that my father had a little pearl-handled pistol that he kept in the upper drawer of his wardrobe, and went home and went in the room and got the gun. And to this day, I don't understand. When I came out of my front door, my father met me. He took the gun and gave me a verbal thrashing. The next day, he took me down with him to see the mayor. And the mayor said, "Lee, that's the only kind of white man I can hire to be a police officer. And I'm sorry, but there's nothing I can do about it." And I told my father, I told myself, we got to do something about this. We can't live like this. We can't live in a community where we have no recourse to that kind of brutality. This story has a weird ending in that several years later, when I had become a grown man and had begun to pastor a little church in Birmingham, Alabama. And I was home that day visiting with my parents, was on the porch with them when the postman came by. And I looked at the postman and he looked at me, and he went on down the street. And I turned to ask my mother a question, and the postman turned back. He said, "Let me ask you something. You're Joe, aren't you?" But he was the policeman that had punched me in the belly several years earlier, who was no longer a police officer, was himself pastoring a little church near a place called Belle Minor, Alabama. And he stopped and apologized, which was a great experience for me because it took away some of the bitterness that had followed me all those years. We shook hands, and I was glad to see that happen between two preachers who were both neophytes as in preaching. But it was an interesting story and helped me a great deal because I hated that man and wanted to find a way someday to get even, either vicariously or otherwise.